The champagne glass slipped from my trembling hands and shattered at his feet. Dante Caruso, the city's most ruthless mafia boss, looked up at me with eyes that could kill. I should have run. Instead, I fell straight into his arms. And that's when everything changed. If you think clumsy girls and dangerous mafia bosses can never fall in love, hit that subscribe button right now, because you're about to be proven wrong. Trust me, you'll want to see where this story goes. Now, let's dive in.
I have always been a walking disaster. 25 years of tripping over flat surfaces, spilling coffee on important documents, knocking over displays in grocery stores like some kind of human wrecking ball. My mother used to say I was born with 2 left feet and borrowed coordination from someone who didn't have any to spare. She wasn't wrong. But I never thought my clumsiness would throw me directly into the path of the most dangerous man in the entire city. My name is Joan Mercer, and chaos has followed me like a shadow since the day I learned to walk. Actually, that's not quite right. I never really learned to walk properly. I just kind of stumbled through life, hoping I wouldn't break something important. Sometimes I succeeded. Most times I didn't. That's how I ended up at Rossi's, the fanciest restaurant in Chicago, the kind of place where one appetizer costs more than my monthly rent. Crystal chandeliers hung from ceilings so high they made me dizzy just looking up. Marble floors polished to a mirror shine that I just knew, I would slip on eventually. White tablecloths that practically screamed, "Spill something red on me, Joan!" I was desperate, broke, terrified I'd mess this up like I'd messed up every other job in my short, catastrophic career. I'd been fired from a bookstore for knocking over an entire display of hardcovers onto a customer. Let go from a coffee shop for breaking 3 espresso machines in 2 weeks. Asked to leave a retail position after I somehow got tangled in a clothing rack and brought the entire thing crashing down. But Rossi's was my last chance. My landlord had stopped being understanding about late rent, my bank account had more zeros than I was comfortable with, the bad kind, the kind that come before the decimal point disappears entirely. "Just don't drop anything," I whispered to myself on my first night, gripping the tray of champagne glasses like my life depended on it. Because honestly, it kind of did. The restaurant hummed with quiet conversations and clinking silverware. Rich people eating rich food, discussing rich people things I couldn't even imagine. I weaved between tables, my heart hammering, my palms sweating, my entire body tense with the effort of not being myself. I was doing fine. Actually, fine. 3 tables served without incident. Maybe I'd outgrown my clumsiness. Maybe this was my turning point, That's when I saw the private dining section. The air felt different there, heavier, charged with something I couldn't name but felt in my bones. Men in expensive suits sat around a large table, but they weren't like the other wealthy diners. These men had hard eyes, harder expressions, hands that rested too close to their jacket pockets in a way that made my survival instincts scream.
And at the head of that table sat him, Dante Caruso. I didn't know his name then, but I knew what he was. You didn't grow up in Chicago without hearing the whispers, without knowing that some men owned more than businesses. They owned streets, owned people, owned the kind of power that didn't come from money alone. He was maybe 38, with black hair swept back from a face that looked like it had been carved from stone and shadow. Sharp jaw, darker eyes that seemed to see everything and give away nothing. He wore his expensive suit like armor, and when he spoke, his men leaned in like his words were gospel. I should have turned around, should have asked another server to handle that section, but I was new and scared and desperate to prove I could do this job. So I walked toward them with my tray of champagne, silently praying to every god I didn't believe in. "Please don't let me mess this up." The universe laughed. I was maybe 10 feet from their table when it happened. My heel, my stupid, required 2-inch heel, caught on absolutely nothing. Just air. Just my own cursed existence. The tray tilted. Time slowed down in that horrible way it does when you know something terrible is about to happen and you're completely powerless to stop it. A champagne glass tumbled through the air in what felt like slow motion. It sailed past my desperate grabbing hands, arced through the expensive air of Rossi's private dining section, and shattered at Dante Caruso's feet. The sound was deafening. Crystal exploding against marble, champagne splashing across polished black shoes, silence dropping over the entire restaurant like a suffocating blanket. Every head turned. Every conversation stopped. Every pair of eyes locked onto me, the clumsy waitress standing frozen in horror, still holding a tray that now had a glass-sized gap in it. But the only eyes I really saw were his. Dante Caruso looked up at me slowly, deliberately. Those dark eyes traveled from the broken glass, up my trembling legs, past my cheap uniform, and finally landed on my face. I wanted to die, wanted the floor to swallow me whole, wanted to reverse time and never take this job, never walk into this section, never be born into this disaster of a body. His men stood immediately. Chairs scraped. Hands moved toward concealed weapons beneath tailored jackets. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. This is it, I thought. This is how I die. Not in some tragic accident, but because I can't hold a glass, because I'm too clumsy to exist in the same world as men like him. But then something impossible happened. Dante raised one hand, just slightly, barely a movement at all, and his men stopped, froze mid-motion like someone had pressed pause on a remote control. He stood, all 6 feet of controlled violence and lethal power. Each step echoed in the silent restaurant as he walked toward me. The crowd seemed to part without actually moving, like even the air knew to get out of his way. His scent hit me first, leather and cedar and something dark I couldn't identify but felt in my stomach. He stopped directly in front of me, so close I could see the faint scar along his jawline, could count his eyelashes if I wasn't so terrified. He didn't yell, didn't threaten, didn't pull out a weapon or signal his men to drag me away. He simply looked down at where I stood trembling, my cheap polyester uniform a stark contrast to his world of wealth and violence, and said 4 words that changed my entire life. "You're bleeding. Come here." I blinked at him, certain I'd heard wrong, certain the fear had scrambled my brain and made me hallucinate words that couldn't possibly be real. "What?" It came out as barely a whisper. He gestured toward my hand. "You're bleeding." I looked down. He was right. A piece of the shattered glass had sliced clean through my palm. Blood welled up, dark red against pale skin. I hadn't even felt it through the panic, through the absolute terror of standing in front of the most dangerous man in Chicago with broken glass at his feet and my career destroyed. Before I could respond, before I could apologize or run or do anything that made sense, his hand wrapped around my wrist. Warm. That was my first thought. His hand was warm and gentle in a way that seemed fundamentally wrong for someone rumored to break bones for a living. He pulled me away from the broken glass, away from the staring crowd, away from his men who still stood like statues, watching their boss touch a clumsy waitress with something that almost looked like care. We ended up in a shadowed corner near the kitchen entrance, tucked away from the spotlight of my humiliation. I could finally breathe here, though my heart still hammered like it was trying to escape my chest. Dante pulled a pristine white handkerchief from his pocket. I watched in stunned silence as he wrapped it around my bleeding hand with precision that seemed too practiced, too careful for someone in his line of work. His touch sent electricity up my arm, made my skin tingle, made my face burn with something that definitely wasn't just embarrassment. I'd never been this close to a man before. Not like this. Not with his head bowed over my hand, his dark hair falling slightly forward, his fingers gentle against my pulse point.
I'm so sorry. I'll pay for the glass. I'll cover the cleaning.
You'll do nothing. His voice was low, rough like gravel rolling across pavement, but there was something underneath it I couldn't quite identify. He looked up, and his eyes, God, those eyes were even darker up close, almost black in the dim light, studied my face like he was memorizing every detail. "What's your name?" "Joan." It came out barely above a breath. "Joan," he repeated slowly, and I'd never heard my name sound like that before. Dangerous, intimate, like a secret shared in darkness. "You work here?" I nodded, not trusting my voice. I needed this job, needed it desperately, and I'd just destroyed any chance of keeping it by breaking expensive crystal at the feet of the restaurant's most important client. Not anymore. My heart sank straight through the floor. Of course, he'd probably demand I be fired, might even demand I be banned from every restaurant in the city. Men like him had that kind of power. "Please," I whispered. "I need this job. I'll be more careful. I promise I'll—" "You'll work for me instead." The world tilted, or maybe I was falling again. I could never tell the difference. "What?" He released my hand, though his touch seemed to linger on my skin like a ghost. "I need an assistant, someone to manage my schedule, keep things organized." A pause. "You start Monday." I stared at him, certain I'd hit my head when I tripped, certain I was hallucinating this entire conversation. "I can't work for you." One dark eyebrow lifted slightly. "No?" "I don't know anything about your—" I trailed off, unable to say it out loud. "Your business, your empire, the illegal things everyone whispers about." Something flickered in his expression, almost amusement, but darker, more dangerous, like a predator finding entertainment in its prey's confusion. "You'll learn," he said simply. "Monday morning, 9 a.m. Don't be late." He straightened his cuffs, suddenly all business, but his eyes never left mine. "The address will be sent to you." "But I didn't give you my—" "I know who you are, Joan Mercer, 25 years old, lives in a 4th-floor walk-up on Madison Street, 2 months behind on rent, fired from 6 jobs in the past year." He stepped closer, and I stopped breathing. I make it my business to know things. Fear and something else, something hot and confusing, twisted in my stomach. That's invasive. That's survival." His voice dropped lower. "My world isn't safe, Joan. If you work for me, you become my responsibility. I protect what's mine, and that means knowing everything." "I'm not yours," I whispered, but it sounded weak even to my own ears. His lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Not yet." He turned to leave, his men immediately falling into formation around him, and I stood there with my heart racing and his handkerchief wrapped around my bleeding hand, wondering if I'd just been saved or damned. At the edge of the dining room he paused, looked back over his shoulder, and "Joan, try not to break anything on your way out." I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. I lay in my tiny apartment with its leaking faucet and drafty windows, staring at the ceiling and trying to make sense of what had happened. Dante Caruso wanted to hire me? The man who reportedly controlled half of Chicago's underground wanted clumsy, disaster-prone Joan Mercer to be his assistant? It made no sense. None at all. Unless he had other plans? Unless this was some kind of trap or test or punishment for embarrassing him in front of his men. But if that were true, why had he been so gentle with my hand? Why had he looked at me like that? Like I was something interesting instead of something broken? Saturday and Sunday crawled by. I told my roommate Kira what had happened. She'd looked at me like I'd grown a second head. "You're not
seriously going to work for him," she'd said, her brown eyes wide with concern. "Joan, he's dangerous. Like, actually dangerous. My cousin's boyfriend's brother got on the wrong side of the Caruso family and I know. Because I did know. Everyone knew. But what choice did I have? I was broke, jobless, and running out of options fast." Monday morning arrived cold and gray. I stood outside a sleek glass building downtown at 8:45, wearing my only professional outfit, black slacks and a white blouse that had a small coffee stain I'd tried unsuccessfully to remove. The lobby screamed wealth and power. Marble floors that made me instantly nervous, security guards with earpieces and bulges under their jackets, a reception desk that looked like it cost more than my annual rent. A woman in a sharp gray suit appeared like she'd been waiting for me. "Joan Mercer?" I nodded, not trusting my voice. "Mr. Caruso is expecting you. Follow me." The elevator ride to the top floor felt like ascending into another dimension. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. My heart hammered against my ribs.
When the doors opened, I stepped into Dante's world. Dark wood paneling, leather furniture that probably cost thousands, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city he controlled from the shadows. Everything was precise, organized, perfect. The exact opposite of me. He stood with his back to the elevator, talking on his phone in rapid Italian. Even his silhouette radiated authority, power, control. When he turned, those dark eyes found mine immediately, and my traitorous heart did that stupid skipping thing again. "Joan." He ended his call without saying goodbye. "You came." "You didn't really give me a choice," I said, then immediately wanted to take it back. "You didn't talk back to men like Dante Caruso." But instead of anger, something flickered in his expression, that same almost amusement from the restaurant. "No," he agreed quietly. "I suppose I didn't." He gestured towards a pristine desk positioned just outside his office door. "You'll work here, answer the phone, manage my calendar, keep track of meetings." A pause. "Keep things organized." The irony physically hurt. He wanted me, the girl who'd been fired for being too disorganized, to bring order to his world. This was going to be a disaster. He must have seen something in my expression because he stepped closer, close enough that I could smell that cedar and leather scent again, close enough to make my skin tingle. "You're wondering why I hired you," he said softly. I nodded, not trusting my voice. His dark eyes studied my face. "Because everyone in my world is calculated, controlled, fake. They say what they think I want to hear, do what they think I want to see." He paused. "But you, Joan, you're real. Refreshingly, catastrophically real. And I find that—" Another pause. "Intriguing." My breath caught. The way he looked at me in that moment, like I was something valuable instead of something broken, made heat flood my entire body. "No," he said, stepping back and breaking whatever spell had fallen over us. "Let's see if you can make it through one day without breaking anything important." Challenge accepted, I thought. I lasted exactly 3 hours before I spilled coffee all over his desk. The coffee spread across Dante's desk like a dark tsunami, soaking into papers that probably cost more than my entire existence. I watched in horror as the liquid reached the edge and began dripping onto the pristine white carpet below. "I'm so sorry," I gasped, grabbing napkins that seemed to materialize in my shaking hands. "I didn't mean to—" The mug just slipped and— "Joan?" His voice cut through my panic. "Calm." Too calm. I froze. Napkins clutched uselessly in my hands, waiting for the anger, the yelling, the inevitable firing. Instead, he simply pressed a button on his desk. Within seconds, 2 men appeared. Not the scary ones with guns, but cleaning staff, who efficiently handled the mess while I stood there feeling like the world's biggest failure. Dante watched me the entire time. Those dark eyes studied my face like he was solving some kind of puzzle I didn't know I represented. "You're terrified," he observed once we were alone again. "I just ruined your desk." It's a desk. I have others. He leaned back in his chair. What terrifies you, Joan? The spilled coffee or working for me? Both, I wanted to say. Everything about this situation terrifies me. Instead, I whispered, I don't understand why you hired me. Something shifted in his expression. He stood and walked around the desk until he was close enough that I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. You're real. Real clumsy. Real disastrous. Real unemployable. His lips curved slightly. Not quite a smile, but close. Real honest. Real unfiltered. Real incapable of pretending to be something you're not. He paused. Do you know how rare that is in my world? I shook my head, not trusting my voice. Everyone lies to me, Joan. They tell me what they think I want to hear. They calculate every word, every gesture, every expression. He reached out slowly, giving me time to move away, and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. The gesture was so gentle, it made my breath catch. Now, he said, stepping back and breaking whatever spell had fallen over us. Let's try this again. Answer the phone when it rings. Don't tell anyone my location. And just try not to spill anything else today. The first week passed in a blur of near disasters and increasing confusion. I answered phones, managed schedules, organized files. Normal assistant things. Except nothing about working for Dante Caruso was normal. Men with hard eyes came and went, speaking in code I pretended not to understand. Conversations ended abruptly when I entered rooms. Dante took calls in Italian that made his voice go cold and dangerous before he'd hang up and look at me like I was the only warm thing in his frozen world. And the touching. God, the touching. Nothing inappropriate. Nothing I could point to and say, that crossed a line. But Dante found reasons to be close. A hand on my lower back guiding me through doorways. Fingers brushing mine when passing documents. Standing close enough that I could feel his body heat, smell that cedar and leather scent that made my thoughts go fuzzy. You're doing well, he said Friday evening after everyone else had left. We were alone in his office, the city lights twinkling below like fallen stars. I only broke 2 things this week, I replied, attempting humor to hide how his proximity affected me. Progress. He moved closer and my pulse jumped. Joan, I need to ask you something. Okay. Tomorrow night, I have a dinner. Business associates. I need someone with me who won't play the usual games. Someone real. His dark eyes held mine. Come with me. My mouth went dry. Like a date? Like my assistant attending a business function, he clarified, but something in his expression suggested layers I couldn't quite read. I'll send a car. 8 p.m. Wear something nice. He left before I could refuse. Left me standing in his office, heart racing, wondering what I'd just agreed to. I had nothing to wear. Absolutely nothing appropriate for whatever business dinner meant in Dante Caruso's world. I stood in front of my pathetic closet Saturday afternoon, fighting the urge to call and cancel. Then a knock came at my door. A delivery woman stood there, holding a garment bag and a box. Joan Mercer? I nodded, confused. From Mr. Caruso. My hands shook as I unzipped the bag. Inside was a dress. Deep emerald green. Simple, but elegant. The kind of dress I'd never be able to afford in 3 lifetimes. The box contained shoes that matched perfectly. A note fell out. Wear this. The car arrives at 8. D. I should have been offended. Should have refused. Instead, I held the dress against my body and felt something dangerous bloom in my chest. At precisely 8 p.m., a black car pulled up outside my building. The driver opened the door without a word, and I slid inside wearing the emerald dress and terrified I'd trip and ruin everything before we even arrived. The restaurant made Rossi's look like a fast food joint. Crystal, marble,
wealth dripping from every surface. My stomach twisted with nerves.
Dante stood outside the entrance, and my breath caught. He wore a black suit that probably cost more than my annual rent. His dark hair swept back, looking every inch the dangerous, powerful man he was. His eyes found me as I approached, and something flashed in their depths. Heat, approval, hunger. Joan. My name came out rough. You look like I'm going to trip and destroy something expensive? I tried to joke, but my voice came out breathy. His hand found my lower back, burning through the thin fabric. Beautiful. You look beautiful. I'd never felt beautiful before, never felt seen the way Dante looked at me in that moment. Inside, we were led to a private room where 4 men and their dates sat around a table. The men looked like predators in expensive suits. Their dates looked like models, perfect and polished. I was so out of my depth. Dante pulled out my chair, his hand lingering on my shoulder. Gentlemen, this is Joan, my assistant. The way he said mine made something clench low in my stomach. Dinner proceeded with conversations I barely understood, business talk wrapped in coded language. I stayed quiet, trying not to embarrass him, focusing on not spilling anything. Then one of the men, Constantine, with cold blue eyes and a Russian accent, turned his attention to me. An assistant. How quaint. Dante usually brings more entertaining company to these dinners. The insult was clear. Heat flooded my face. Dante's hand found mine under the table, squeezing gently. Joan is far more interesting than any entertainment I could provide. Really? Constantine's smile didn't reach his eyes. Tell me, Joan, what do you do for Dante exactly? I manage his schedule, organize his... How boring. He cut me off. Surely you offer other services. The implication made my stomach turn, made shame burn through me. Dante's grip on my hand tightened. When I looked at him, his expression was cold death. Careful, Constantine. I meant no offense, but his smile suggested otherwise. The rest of dinner passed in uncomfortable tension. By the time we left, I felt sick with humiliation. In the car, Dante was silent, furious. I could feel anger radiating off him in waves. I'm sorry, I whispered. I shouldn't have come. I embarrassed you. His head snapped toward me. You think you embarrassed me? I don't belong in your world. That was obvious to everyone. He moved so fast I didn't have time to react. One moment he was on his side of the car, the next he was inches from me, his hand cupping my face with surprising gentleness, despite the fury in his eyes. That man insulted you, he said, voice low and dangerous, and he'll pay for it. You have no idea what you do to me, Joanne. No idea how much restraint it takes not to claim you right here. My breath caught. Dante? You belong exactly where I put you, he continued, some tracing my lower lip. And right now, I want you beside me, in my world, in my life. Then he kissed me. The kiss wasn't gentle. It was consuming, desperate, like Dante had been holding back for weeks and finally snapped. His hand cupped the back of my neck, fingers tangling in my hair, while his other hand gripped my waist and pulled me closer, as close as the car's interior would allow. I'd never been kissed like this. Never been kissed at all, really. But instinct took over. My hands fisted in his expensive shirt, holding on like he was the only solid thing in a world that had suddenly tilted sideways.
Heat flooded every nerve ending, made my skin tingle, made my heart hammer so hard I thought it might burst through my chest. His lips moved against mine with a hunger that should have scared me, but instead made me want more. Want everything. When he finally pulled back, we were both breathing hard. His forehead pressed against mine, his dark eyes searching my face. "I shouldn't have done that," he breathed, but his grip on me didn't loosen. "Why not?" The question came out breathy, desperate. "Because now I can't let you go." His thumb traced my swollen bottom lip. "Because I want things I have no right wanting. Because you're innocent, and I'm—" "Don't." I cut him off, surprising myself with my boldness. "Don't tell me all the reasons this is wrong. I already know them. I know you're dangerous. I know your world is violent. I know I should run as far away from you as possible." "Then why don't you?" I looked into his dark eyes, those eyes that could go cold as death with his enemies, but looked at me like I was something precious. "Because when I'm with you, I finally feel like I matter. Like I'm more than just the clumsy girl who breaks everything."
Something fierce and possessive flashed across his face. "You are so much more than that, Joan. So much more than you know." He kissed me again, softer this time, but no less intense. When the car pulled up outside my building, I didn't want to leave, didn't want this moment to end. "Come upstairs with me," I whispered against his lips, shocking myself with the invitation. His jaw clenched. "Joan, if I come upstairs, I won't be able to control myself, and you deserve better than being claimed in a rushed moment." "What if I don't want you to control yourself?" He groaned, the sound rough and pained. "Don't tempt me. You have no idea how close I am to saying yes." "Then say yes." Instead, he pressed a kiss to my forehead, tender and almost reverent. "Not tonight. When I have you, Joan, it won't be rushed. It'll be slow, thorough. I'll worship every inch of you until you're screaming my name." Heat flooded my face, pooled low in my stomach, made my legs feel weak. He smiled at my reaction, a real smile that transformed his face from dangerous to devastatingly handsome. "Go inside. I'll see you Monday." I stumbled out of the car on shaky legs, my lips still tingling, my entire body humming with unfulfilled want. I was falling for Dante Caruso, and God help me, I didn't want to stop. Monday arrived with a shift in the air. Something felt wrong the moment I stepped into Dante's office building. Security seemed tighter, the guards' expressions harder, an undercurrent of tension that made my skin prickle with unease. When I reached my desk, Dante's office door was closed. Unusual. He normally left it open when I arrived, a silent invitation that I'd come to appreciate. I sat down, trying to shake off the nervous energy, when his door opened. A man I'd never seen before walked out. Older, maybe 60, with silver hair and eyes that reminded me of frozen lakes. He looked at me as he passed, his gaze calculating and cold in a way that made my stomach turn. Dante appeared in the doorway behind him, his expression carved from stone. "Joan, my office, now." His tone sent ice down my spine. I followed him inside, closing the door behind me. "Who was that?" I asked. "Luca Moretti." The name came out flat. My former mentor. I waited, sensing there was more. Dante moved to the window, his back to me, tension radiating from every line of his body. "He knows about you."
"What do I have to do with anything?" He turned, and the look in his eyes made my breath catch. Fear. Actual fear in the eyes of the most dangerous man I knew. "Everything. You have everything to do with everything now." He crossed to me in 3 strides, gripping my shoulders. He wanted me to marry his daughter, unite our families, build an empire together. Understanding dawned cold and terrible. "But you refused?" I refused before I met you. I had no interest in marrying for power. His grip tightened slightly. But now, he knows about you. Knows that I've chosen a clumsy waitress over his dynasty, and that makes you a target, Joan. Fear clawed up my throat. What does that mean? It means you're not safe anymore. It means I need to protect you, and the only way to do that is... He stopped, jaw clenching. Is what? Move in with me. Let me assign security. Let me keep you close where I know you're safe. It was too much. Too fast. Dante, I can't just... Please. The word came out broken. Desperate. I can't lose you. I've lost too much already. I won't lose you too. I'd never heard him sound like that. Vulnerable. Almost broken. It shattered something inside me. Okay, I whispered. Okay, I'll move in. Relief flooded his face. He pulled me into his arms, holding me like I might disappear. I'll keep you safe, I promise. No one will touch you. I wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that his power was enough to protect me from whatever storm was coming. But deep down, some instinct whispered that the danger was closer than either of us realized. And I was right. 3 days later, I was taken. I should have been more careful. Should have listened when Dante insisted I take the security detail everywhere. But old habits die hard, and being followed by armed men to grab coffee felt ridiculous. So when my favorite cafe was just 2 blocks from Dante's building, I slipped out alone. It was the biggest mistake of my life. The morning was crisp, the kind of Chicago autumn day that made you forget winter was coming. I had my phone in one hand, coffee order in my head, completely oblivious to the danger circling. The van pulled up so fast I didn't even have time to scream. 1 second I was walking on a busy sidewalk, the next a cloth covered my face, sweet-smelling, chemical, and the world went dark. When consciousness returned, it came in fragments. Cold concrete beneath me, hands bound behind my back, head pounding like someone had taken a hammer to my skull. I blinked, trying to focus, trying to understand where I was. A warehouse. Abandoned from the look of it. Broken windows high above let in weak sunlight that did nothing to warm the space. The smell of rust and decay filled my nose. And sitting across from me in a metal chair, looking entirely too comfortable, was the silver-haired man from Dante's office, Luca Moretti.
"Ah, she wakes," he said, his voice carrying an Italian accent that somehow made every word sound like a threat. "Joan Mercer, the little nobody who made Dante Caruso soft." Terror clawed up my throat, but I forced my voice to stay steady. "He'll kill you for this." Luca laughed, a cold, empty sound. "Oh, I'm counting on him trying. You see, Joan, you're not just a hostage. You're bait and leverage, and a very valuable lesson about what happens when my students forget their place." "I don't understand." My wrists ached where the ropes cut into skin. "What do you want?" "Want?" He stood, circling me slowly, like a predator assessing prey. "I want Dante to remember who made him, who taught him everything he knows, who gave him power." He stopped in front of me, tilting my chin up with cold fingers. "And I want him to understand that choosing some clumsy girl over my daughter was the greatest insult he could have given me." I jerked my head away. "So, this is about wounded pride? You took me because your ego got bruised?" His hand cracked across my face so fast I didn't see it coming. Pain exploded across my cheek. My vision blurred with tears I refused to let fall. "Careful, girl. You're valuable alive, but I never specified what condition." He pulled out his phone, typed something, then smiled. "I just sent your location to Dante. Well, a location. Not quite the right one, but close enough to make him sweat." Horror washed over me. "You're setting a trap."
Very good. Yes, a trap. He'll come for you. Of course he will. The mighty Dante Caruso, rushing in to save his precious Joan. And when he does, I'll have him exactly where I want him. Luca crouched down to my level. He'll have to choose his empire or you, his power or his heart. And either way, I win. You don't know him, I said, voice shaking but defiant. He won't choose. Oh, but he will. Love makes men weak, makes them stupid, makes them predictable. He stood, brushing off his expensive suit. I'll leave you to contemplate your role in Dante's downfall. My men will keep you company. He left, and 2 large men took positions by the door. Guards, jailers. I was trapped. Hours crawled by, or maybe minutes. Time felt wrong, distorted by fear and pain. My wrists bled where I'd tried to work the ropes loose. My face throbbed where Luca had hit me. But worse than the physical pain was the knowledge that Dante was walking into a trap because of me. Then I heard it. Gunfire. Distant, but getting closer. Shouts. The sound of something exploding. The warehouse door exploded inward. And there he was. Dante. Covered in blood that I prayed wasn't his. Gun in hand. Eyes wild with something feral and desperate. Behind him, his men engaged Luca's forces in a firefight that turned the warehouse into chaos. But Dante's focus was singular. His eyes found mine across the warehouse, and relief so profound it looked like pain washed over his face. Joan! My name ripped from his throat like a prayer and a curse combined. He crossed the distance in seconds, cutting my bonds with a knife that appeared from nowhere. His hands shook, the first time I'd ever seen Dante Caruso shake. As he checked me for injuries. Are you hurt? Did they touch you? Tell me. His voice cracked. I'm okay, I whispered, though I wasn't. I was traumatized, terrified, shaking so hard my teeth rattled. Dante, it's a trap. Luca, I know. His arms came around me, crushing me against his chest. His heart hammered against my cheek. I know, and I don't care. You think I'd leave you here? You think anything matters more than getting you back? That's when Luca's voice echoed through the warehouse. How touching. The great Dante Caruso, reduced to a lovesick fool. Dante's entire body went rigid. He carefully, gently, moved me behind him. When he turned to face Luca, his expression was death itself.
You made a mistake, Dante said, his voice cold and controlled, in a way that was somehow more terrifying than rage. You touched what's mine. Luca smiled, unbothered. And you'll do what? Kill me? I have 20 men surrounding this building. You have maybe 8. The math doesn't favor you, boy. I don't need math. I need rage. And you just gave me plenty. What happened next happened fast. Dante's men moved with precision born from years of working together. Gunfire erupted. I crouched behind a concrete pillar, hands over my ears, praying this nightmare would end. Through it all, Dante moved like violence personified. Controlled, lethal, efficient. Every movement had purpose. Every shot found its target. When the noise finally stopped, when the gun smoke cleared, Dante stood over Luca's unconscious form, gun pointed at his head. Give me one reason, Dante said quietly, why I shouldn't end you right now. Because I'm unarmed. Because you're supposed to be better than this. Because... Wrong answers. Dante's finger tightened on the trigger. Dante! My voice cut through his rage. Don't! Not like this. Not because of me. He looked at me, and the war in his eyes nearly broke my heart. He took you. He hurt you. I know. And he'll pay for it. But not like this. Not execution. I moved closer, placing my hand over his gun. Let the others handle him. Just take me home. For a long moment, he didn't move. Then, slowly, he lowered the gun,
signaled his men to secure Lupa, and pulled me into his arms like he'd never let go. The drive to Dante's penthouse passed in silence, broken only by my occasional sob. Adrenaline crash hit hard, leaving me shaking and exhausted. Dante held me the entire way, one arm around my shoulders, his other hand gripping mine like I might disappear if he let go. His penthouse was all dark elegance and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Normally, I would have been intimidated. Tonight, I barely noticed. Dante led me to the master bathroom, all marble and gold fixtures, and started running a bath. His movements were gentle, careful, like I was something fragile that might shatter. "I can do this myself," I whispered. "I know. Let me anyway." His voice was rough, raw. "Please, Joan, let me take care of you." I nodded, too exhausted to argue. He helped me out of my torn, dirty clothes with clinical efficiency, his eyes never lingering inappropriately, despite the intimacy of the moment. Then, he lifted me into the warm water like I weighed nothing. The heat eased my aching muscles, but couldn't touch the deeper hurt. The trauma of being taken. The fear. The helplessness. Dante knelt beside the tub, still fully clothed, and gently washed the blood from my wrists where the ropes had cut. His hands were so careful, so tender. Nothing like the violence I had witnessed hours earlier. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "This is my fault. I should have protected you better. Shoulda." "Stop." I grabbed his hand. "This isn't your fault. Luca made his choice, and I made mine when I stayed with you, knowing the risks. You shouldn't have to know the risks. You should be safe, normal, living a normal life with a normal man who doesn't bring danger to your door." I cupped his face with my wet hand, forcing him to look at me. "I don't want normal. I want you."
Something broke in his expression. He leaned forward, resting his forehead against mine. "I love you, Joan. God help me, I love you so much it terrifies me. I've killed men without blinking, built an empire on fear, done things that would make you run if you knew. But you make me want to be better, want to be worthy of the way you look at me." Tears spilled down my cheeks. "I love you too, even though it's crazy, even though it's dangerous, even though we make no sense together." He kissed me then, soft and gentle, and filled with emotion that made my chest ache. "You're moving in. No arguments. I can't keep you safe if you're not with me." "Okay." "I'm putting a security detail on you permanently." "Okay." "And eventually, when this is over, when Luca is handled and the threats are gone," he paused, his dark eyes holding mine, "I'm going to marry you, Joan Mercer. I'm going to make you mine in every way that matters." My breath caught. That's very presumptuous. That's a promise. He helped me from the bath, wrapping me in a towel softer than anything I'd ever felt. "Now let's get you to bed. You need rest." "Stay with me?" "I'm not going anywhere." He dressed me in one of his shirts, soft cotton that smelled like him, and carried me to his massive bed. I expected him to leave, to give me space, but instead, he climbed in beside me, pulling me against his chest. "Sleep," he murmured, pressing a kiss to my hair. "I'll keep watch. I'll keep you safe." For the first time since the kidnapping, I felt secure, protected, loved. I fell asleep to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat, wrapped in the arms of the most dangerous man in Chicago, and somehow felt safer than I'd ever been. When I woke, sunlight streamed through the windows. Dante sat in a chair beside the bed, showered and changed, but looking like he hadn't slept at all. His eyes were on me, watchful and protective. "How long have you been awake?" I asked, my voice rough with sleep. "I never slept." "Dante." "I couldn't."
Every time I closed my eyes, I saw you in that warehouse. Saw what could have happened if I'd been too late. Dante, I need to tell you something about Luca, about why he hates me so much. I sat up, sensing the weight of whatever he was about to reveal. Okay? He was quiet for a long moment, choosing his words carefully. 5 years ago, Luca ordered me to kill someone, a rival family's son who'd gotten in the way of a deal. I refused, not because I cared about the target, but because the hit was sloppy, unnecessary, would have started a war we couldn't win. I stayed silent, letting him continue.
Lucas saw my refusal as betrayal, as weakness. He wanted me to prove my loyalty by following orders without question. When I wouldn't, he tried to have me killed. Dante's jaw tightened. I survived, took control of his operations, forced him into exile. He's been waiting for revenge ever since. And I gave him the perfect opportunity, I whispered. No, I gave him the opportunity by falling in love with you, by choosing you over his plans for me. He cupped my face, and I'd make the same choice 1,000 times over. My heart swelled. What happens now with Luca? Now he answers for taking you, for hurting you, for threatening what's mine. The dangerous edge returned to his voice. The other families are meeting tonight. He'll face their judgment. Will they kill him? Probably, or worse. He studied my face. Does that bother you? I thought about it. About the man who'd slapped me, threatened me, used me as bait. About the fear I'd felt in that warehouse. No, I said finally. It doesn't. Does that make me a bad person? It makes you mine, Dante said, and kissed me like I was his salvation and his damnation wrapped in one clumsy, beautiful package. The meeting of the families took place 3 nights later, in a location I wasn't allowed to know. Dante insisted I stay at the penthouse with armed guards at every entrance. He kissed me goodbye like he might not return, and fear clawed at my throat. What if something goes wrong? I whispered against his chest. Then I'd die knowing I loved you more than I've loved anything in my miserable life. He cupped my face. But I'm not planning on dying, Joan. I'm planning on coming back to you and building a life where you're safe, where we're both safe. He left, and I paced the penthouse for hours, unable to sit still, unable to think about anything except what might be happening in that meeting. Would they kill Luca? Would there be retaliation? Would Dante survive whatever political games were being played with our lives? When he finally returned, just after midnight, relief flooded through me so intensely I nearly collapsed. He looked exhausted, but unharmed, and the expression on his face was one I couldn't quite read. It's over, he said simply, pulling me into his arms. Luca's been exiled, permanently. The families voted unanimously. He'll never set foot in this city again, and if he does, there's a death sentence waiting. Not death? I asked, surprised. I argued for exile instead, for you. You asked me not to execute him. You showed me mercy when I had none left, so I listened. The families agreed that exile was fitting, a living death for a man who craves power. Tears filled my eyes. You did that for me? I'd do anything for you, Joan. Anything. He kissed me softly, thoroughly. But there's something else, something I need to ask.
He stepped back, and my heart stuttered when he pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. My hands flew to my mouth as he dropped to one knee. Joan Mercer, you walked into my life like a beautiful disaster and changed everything. You made me want to be better, made me believe I could be more than the monster everyone feared. You saved me in ways you'll never fully understand. His dark eyes held mine with an intensity that stole my breath. I know this is fast. I know we've only known each other for months. I know I come with danger and darkness and a world that will never be completely safe. But I love you with everything I am. Will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life protecting you, loving you, being worthy of you? Yes, the word burst out of me before he even finished. Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. He slid the ring onto my finger, a simple, elegant diamond that caught the light and sparkled like captured starlight. Then he stood and kissed me, lifting me off the ground, spinning me in a circle while I laughed and cried simultaneously. "When?" I asked breathlessly when he finally set me down. "As soon as possible. This weekend if I can arrange it. I don't want to wait, Joan. I've waited my whole life for you without even knowing it. Now that I have you, I want to make it official. Make you mine in every way that matters." "This weekend," I agreed, dizzy with happiness and love and the surreal reality that I, clumsy, disaster-prone Joan Mercer, was going to marry Dante Caruso. The wedding happened 4 days later in a small private chapel that belonged to Dante's family. Only his most trusted people attended, maybe 20 guests total. I wore a simple white dress that Dante had chosen, and he wore a black suit that made him look devastating. Kiera, my roommate, stood as my maid of honor, still looking shock-shelled that this was actually happening. "You're marrying a Mafia boss," she'd whispered while helping me get ready. "This is insane." "I know," I whispered back, grinning like a lunatic. "Isn't it wonderful?" The ceremony was short but meaningful. When it came time for vows, Dante took my hands and spoke words that made my eyes fill with tears. "I vow to protect you with everything I am, to love you through the chaos and the calm, to be the monster the world fears so you never have to be, to worship you every day of my life until my last breath leaves my body. You are my salvation, Joan, my redemption, my everything."
My turn. I squeezed his hands, my voice shaking with emotion. "I vow to stand beside you in the darkness and the light, to be your peace when the world is violent, to love every part of you, the good, the bad, and the terrifying, to never stop believing in the man you are beneath the reputation. You make me feel like I finally belong somewhere, Dante, like I'm more than just the girl who breaks things. You're my home." When the officiant pronounced us married, Dante kissed me like he was claiming me, marking me, making me his in front of everyone who mattered. The small crowd applauded, but I barely heard them through the rushing in my ears, through the overwhelming love that flooded every cell of my body. We had a small reception in Dante's penthouse, champagne and food that I barely touched because I was too happy to eat. Dante kept me close the entire time, his hand always on me, my waist, my back, my hand, like he needed the constant contact to believe this was real. "Happy," he murmured against my ear during a slow dance. "Deliriously," I breathed back. "You?" "More than I ever thought possible." He pulled back to look at me, and the love in his eyes was so intense it made my chest ache. "You've given me something I didn't know I was missing, Joan. Purpose beyond power, love beyond loyalty, a future I actually want to live." I reached up to cup his scarred, beautiful face. "We're going to be happy, aren't we? Despite everything, despite your world and my clumsiness and all the chaos that comes with us." "We're going to be extraordinary," he corrected, and kissed me until I forgot there were other people in the room. That night, after the guests left and we were finally alone, Dante carried me to his bedroom, our bedroom now, and made good on all those promises he'd whispered in the car weeks ago. He worshipped every inch of me slowly, thoroughly, making me scream his name until my voice went hoarse, showing me with his body what his words had already told my heart. I was his, completely, irrevocably, and he was mine. 6 months after we married, I stood in our penthouse kitchen, still occasionally breaking things, still tripping over my own feet, still the beautiful disaster Dante had fallen in love with, staring at the positive test result in my shaking hands. Pregnant. I was pregnant with Dante Caruso's baby. Terror and joy warred in my chest. A baby, in this world, in this life we'd built from violence and broken glass. I heard the front door open, heard Dante's voice calling my name.
He'd been at a meeting all morning, something about transitioning more operations into legitimate businesses. He'd been doing that a lot lately, finding ways to make his empire cleaner, safer, better. For me, for us, for the future we were building. "Joan, you here?" "Kitchen!" I called back, my voice shaky. He appeared in the doorway looking devastating in a dark suit, his hair slightly mussed, like he'd been running his hands through it. His eyes found mine immediately, and concern flickered across his face. "What's wrong? You look pale." I held up the test wordlessly. He stared at it for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then his eyes met mine, and I saw it. Wonder, joy, fear, love so intense it made my breath catch. "You're pregnant?" he said, his voice rough. "I'm pregnant," I confirmed, tears spilling down my cheeks. "I know we didn't plan this. I know it's fast, and maybe the timing is wrong." And he crossed the kitchen in 3 strides and pulled me into his arms, crushing me against his chest. "It's perfect. You're perfect. This is perfect." "Are you scared?" I asked against his shirt. "Terrified," he admitted, "but also happier than I've ever been. We're going to have a baby, Joan. A little person who's half you and half me. That's—" his voice cracked. "That's everything." I pulled back to look at his face and saw tears tracking down his cheeks. The first time I'd ever seen Dante cry. It broke something open in my chest. "We're going to be okay," I whispered, wiping his tears. "All 3 of us." "I know." He placed his hand over my still flat stomach with such gentleness it made me cry harder. "I'll destroy anyone who threatens this family. I'll build you a fortress if I have to. You'll be an amazing father. Overprotective and intense and terrifying to any boys or girls who come near our child. But amazing." He laughed through his tears, and the sound was pure joy. The months that followed were filled with planning and preparation. Dante became even more protective, if that was possible. Security doubled. He insisted I have a bodyguard everywhere I went. He child-proofed the penthouse before I even started showing. "The baby won't be mobile for at least a year," I pointed out as he installed cabinet locks. "I'm practicing," he said seriously, and I couldn't help but laugh. My belly grew. My clumsiness intensified with the shift in my center of gravity. Dante caught me more times than I could count, always there before I hit the ground, always whispering, "I've got you," against my hair. The nursery took shape, soft yellows and greens since we'd decided to wait on finding out the gender. Dante personally assembled every piece of furniture, cursing in Italian when things didn't fit correctly, making me giggle from my position, supervising from the rocking chair. "This is domestic," I observed one evening, watching my dangerous Mafia boss husband struggle with a crib instruction manual. "This is love," he corrected without looking up. "I'd assemble 1,000 cribs if it made you smile like that." Our daughter, because of course it was a girl, because the universe had a sense of humor, arrived on a snowy February morning. Labor was long and painful and terrifying, but Dante never left my side. He held my hand through every contraction, whispered encouragement when I wanted to give up, cried when they placed our daughter in my arms. "She's perfect," he breathed, staring at the tiny red-faced bundle like she was the most precious thing in the universe. "She has your eyes," I said, exhausted but overwhelmed with love. "She has your nose, and hopefully your heart." He kissed my forehead. "Thank you, Joan, for this, for her, for choosing me despite everything." We named her Isabella Rose Caruso, Bella for short, and she became the center of our universe. 2 years later, I sat in the same penthouse living room watching Dante chase our toddler around, both of them laughing. Bella had inherited my clumsiness and his stubbornness, a terrifying combination that kept us constantly on our toes. "Daddy, catch me!" she squealed, running on wobbly legs. "I'll always catch you, Principessa." Dante called back, scooping her up and spinning her around while she shrieked with delight.
My heart swelled watching them. This life we'd built seemed impossible sometimes. The clumsy waitress and the mafia boss. The innocent girl and the dangerous man. The disaster and the control freak. But we'd made it work. Made it beautiful. Made it ours. Dante caught my eye over Bella's dark curls and smiled. That real smile he reserved only for us. The smile that transformed him from the monster everyone feared into the man I loved with my entire soul. I smiled back, resting my hand on my stomach where baby number 2 was just beginning to make their presence known. Life was chaotic, unpredictable, sometimes scary, but it was ours, built from broken glass and blood and a love that defied every odd stacked against it. And I wouldn't change a single clumsy, beautiful, dangerous moment of it. Because sometimes the best things in life come from falling into the right arms, falling in love, falling into a future you never saw coming but can't imagine living without. I'd spent my whole life being the girl who broke everything. Turned out I just needed to find the man who'd let me break him open and love every shattered piece. And God, what a beautiful disaster we'd become together. So there you have it, Joan and Dante's impossible love story, from a shattered champagne glass to a family built on love stronger than fear. If this story made you feel something, drop a comment telling me your favorite moment. Subscribe for more romance stories that'll have you at the edge of your seat. Share this with someone who believes in love that defies every rule. Because sometimes the most beautiful things are born from chaos. Until next time, remember, you never know when you'll fall into the arms that change everything. Thanks for listening to this story.